Chef Roger. I'm about to make what I like to call Thanksgiving in a bite. It's a turkey dish, turkey stew, but I'm gonna make into a one bite size. It's nice and creamy, chunky, there's a lot of flavor into it, and it's something different. I use it a lot when I'm making catering events as a little Amuse Bouche. You know, it's great for your pass hors d'oeuvre and things like that. But depending on the size you are building those, they could be for an appetizer and even an entree. So what do I have in that dish? Some turkey, of course, a little mirepoix with some carrot, onion, garlic. I'm going to have some herb de Provence. If you don't have herb de Provence, you could use some dry rosemary, thyme, a little bit of bay leaves. Also have some chicken stock, some white wine, some brandy, honey, fresh cranberries, some gelatin, and here I have a little station because that's going to be breaded at the end with some breadcrumb, whole eggs that's been beaten, and some flour. All the measurements of those ingredients will be on the description part of the video. So if you need to know those, just look in the description, everything will be there. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to brown my meat. Then I will brown my vegetable. I'm going to deglaze with my brandy here. It's going to do a little flambé. My wine. Add the honey. And finish with the chicken stock. When everything is cooked, I will add some gelatin to it to set it. So I can cut little pieces out of them, bread those pieces, and then deep fry them. It's going to be beautiful. Ready? Let's do it. So I'm going to add a little bit of oil here. And then I'm going to saute my turkey. When you do your turkey, it's a large amount, but I'm going to do here, if you do the same amount, don't put everything at once. We want to create some color on the outside. So if you put everything at once, it's just going to kind of start stewing on you. You don't want that. You don't want to do it by batches so you can develop a nice color. It's very, very important. And it's very important that the oil here is very hot. You should start seeing a little smoke coming out of the pan before you add your turkey. Now you don't want too much smoke because that will mean you're burning your oil and you don't want to burn your oil. I'm on a high heat here. I'm going to add some of my turkey and you should hear the sear. I'm going to let it brown. I'm not going to shake the pan, I'm not going to start stirring it. I'm just going to let it go like that, couple minutes to brown it well, and then I will move it around. Okay, I'm going to give it a little stir now. You see that the meat's starting to brown nicely. And I want to brown it like that all over. I'm browning it this way to make sure I'm developing a lot of flavor. I'm taking a lot of flavor out of that turkey by creating what we call Maillard reaction, which is some kind of caramelization of your protein that give a nice meaty flavor to your dish. At that point I can season it a little bit with salt and pepper. So that meat is getting very nice and beautiful color here. But now my sucks here on the bottom are getting a little brown. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a little bit of water. I'm just going to add it right here, deglazing to bring that color actually and those sucks onto my meat. You see? They all disappear and they go and coat the meat nicely and give it an even nicer color. Okay, so that's done. I'm going to add that right here. And then I'm going to do my last batch and start browning my vegetable. So for the mirepoix, I made long little strips like those. I don't want to cut it too small. Those are around, I would say, 5 centimeters long and half centimeter. So for the mirepoix, I cut little strips of carrot this way. They're like 5 centimeters long, 1 centimeter thick. I don't want to cut it too small because I want them to keep their shape as my stew is cooking. Because then I will chop it and add it to that mixture that I'm going to shred. I'm going to make a whole mix like that. So I want to keep them that size so it's just easier for me to do and they don't just break apart and fall apart into mush into my, my stew. So here I'm adding my carrots and my onions together. I'm going to cook that slightly, give it a tiny little bit of color, season it, and then I will add it to my meat. I'm going to add a touch more oil, just like that. So the vegetable have been cooking for a couple of minutes. I'm going to add to it the cranberries. Now I'm going to flame all that with my brandy. Okay, I have my little torch here and we're going to flame that. When you flame, you don't want to flame like that. Important when you flame on your burner, on your gas stove, I will suggest to turn the heat off, add your brandy and with the matches flame it. Because if you on the gas stove and you add the brandy, some might spill on the side and it's going to flame right up to you and maybe hurt you. So be very, very delicate. Be very, very careful when doing that. Here I'm adding the brandy, and now I'm going to flame. Woo! Beautiful little flambage here. Oopsie. Almost burned the house out here. Everybody heard that? Woo! So here we go. Now I saute everything together. Smell good. And now I'm going to put all that with my meat. Everything here is going to go with meat. One thing is, here I have little residue. Those are little sucks. I want those. I don't want to get rid of them. So I'm going to add my wine to that. That was a white wine. I'm going to scrap those off because that's flavor right here. And I want that. Very, very important. That helps to clean the saucepan too. Voila. Gathering what's on the side too. Here. Okay. And now everything goes back with the meat. Here. I'm going to cook the wine for a minute or so, and then I will add my chicken stock. I can add at that point too my crushed garlic to it. I'm also going to sprinkle my herb de Provence. Oh, and before I add my wine, and before I add my chicken stock, I'm going to add my honey here. A little honey for a little sweetness. That's gonna counterbalance the acidity of my cranberry. Mix everything together. Okay, now I'm going to add my chicken stock. Everything is well covered, just up to the turkey. I'm going to bring that to a boil, then turn it, lower it to a low simmer, cover it, and let it cook for a good hour. Then it should be ready for the next stage, which is to shred everything, cut my little vegetable into small pieces, mix it all together, reduce the sauce a little bit. I will bind that sauce to make it a little thicker, and add some gelatin to the sauce, put everything back together, and I'm going to set it into a container that I have here, laid with some plastic wrap. Let it set. Then I will cut them in small bite size and bread them. They will then be ready to be deep fried and enjoyed. Okay, so now I come to a simmer here. I'm going to lower my heat, cover it, and just let it go for an hour. Meat is cooked. How do I know it's cooked? I take a piece and it just shred very easily like that. See? That's a sign that it's cooked. I'm going to strain everything here. Separate the meat from the vegetable. My carrot are going to be diced in small pieces. The meat is going to be processed in my mixer here with my paddle. And then I will combine those two together. The juice, the sauce that's here, I'm going to add a little bit of heavy cream to it. Cook it lightly. Add what we call a slurry to thicken it up. It's going to be a combination of cornstarch and a bit of water just to make it thicker. And I will add my gelatin to it. Pour it in that container I showed you earlier and let it set in the fridge till it's hardened. So here we go. Okay. I'm going to move it around like that to make sure all the juice release in here. And I'm taking that and put it back with my sauce. Okay? Now, again, what I want to do is pull all the meat here off. The meat will go here. I'm going to reserve my vegetable in here. I'm going to process that in a moment. I'm taking those vegetables and we're going to cut them in small pieces like those. I'm going to give it a little chop to make sure there's a little piece of carrot in each croquette. But again, I don't want a puree here, huh? I'm going to keep that here aside for now, and I will add it to my meat in a moment. So it comes to a simmer. I'm going to add the cream to it. Let it come to a simmer, let it cook for 5 minutes, and then I will do a little binding with my slurry. The slurry is just for consistency. When my guests bite into that croquette, I don't want everything to start dripping. So it needs to stay together. So this is why the slurry is here. My gelatin, the gelatin is here so it can set in the fridge, and then I can cut even shape out of my croquette and bread it. As you warm up the croquettes, the gelatin will melt down, soften up, so you won't feel it as you eat it. This is very good. It tastes lovely. Cornstarch, I have a tablespoon and a half of it right here. I'm going to mix that inside and then add it to my liquid. Now as I add some of it, I'm not going to add everything at a time. I add little at a time till I get to the desired consistency. If I put too much cornstarch, it's going to be like glue. So I want to be very careful on how much I add to it. As I add it, I'm going to stir it in and lower the heat. And you want to stir it in, if not, it's just going to clump back on the bottom here. And then remember that you need to bring that to a simmer, to a boil, for the cornstarch to activate. If not, it might not thicken up the way you want it. See, we have a nice consistency. It napped the back of the spoon very well. This is exactly what I want. I'm going to turn this off, put it aside for now. I'm going to take my mixer here, in which I have my meat. I'm going to put that on a low speed and let it go to shred everything well. I'm going to add 2 ladles of my sauce with it for now. Okay. Now in the sauce here, I'm going to add my gelatin. And those are gelatin leaves. As you get them first, they're firm, you put them in cold water to bloom, and then you add them to your preparation. There we go. I'm going to stir that inside. It's all going to melt. I'm stopping the meat here for now because I want to make sure I can keep an eye on it, and for now I'm focusing on to my sauce, so one thing at a time. I'm going to let it set a little bit, then I will stir it again to make sure that all the gelatin dissolve well, because I don't want, when my guests bite into those little croquettes or Thanksgiving in a bite, I don't want them to feel any pieces of gelatin in their mouth. Let's put that back on here. all nicely shredded. That here. I'm going to remove that. Now, here's my meat. It's full of its shredded meat. I'm going to stir that sauce again. I'm going to put the meat back into it. Just like that. Mix it all together. Add to it my carrots. And mix it all. And now I'm going to add it into my container here, this way. I'm going to spread that evenly. Just like that. Tap it a little bit, just to make sure there is no air bubble pockets that form. Then I'm going to cover it with my plastic this way, so it doesn't dry. I'm going to let that set in my fridge for 3 to 4 hours, and then I will cut my little croquette, my little Thanksgiving in a bite, and bread them. So the mixture has set. I actually put it in the freezer to make sure it was nice and firm, so when I cut it, you know, I can cut it well. Here it is. I'm going to remove it this way. And now I'm going to cut it. So depending on the size, you know, it's really up to you. I took a ruler and I mark where I need to cut. So I'm sure, first of all, I know exactly how many I'm going to yield out of that. And also, I'm going to be very consistent with my size. So here we go. Turn the board this way now. Sure, align them well. Yes. Here we go. Okay, everything's cut. This is the size I will have. One nice bite. Maybe two after you bread it. They kind of grow up a little bit. Okay, so now to bread it. My flour is right here. My eggs and my breadcrumb. I'm going to take those, I'm going to put them in the flour. This is the fryer here that's getting ready. Now, I put them in the flour, kind of shake them in. Up. I'm going to take each one of them. I'm going to remove the excess of flour. You don't want too much flour on it. If not, make some kind of lumps after. And just enough to coat it. And you pack it in so it stays nice on it. Then into my egg yolk. Into my egg, my regular eggs. So I have that little tool I use when they're in the egg to be able to pick them, release the excess of eggs from it, and then I put them onto the breadcrumb. Up. Because you don't want too much egg mixture again on it. Just enough. Now if you don't have a tool like that, use a fork. Maybe you have a little spikes that you could use. Little skewer. And make sure you have egg all over, huh? Okay. Now, the breading, I'm going to roll them this way by shaking them into the breadcrumb. Then I take them, so I press my breadcrumb into it. Then I'm going to go back into the egg mixture. We're going to double bread it to make sure that when we fry them, they don't explode because there is moisture in it. So if I only do one breading, moisture is going to leak out, it's going to steam, and eventually make the breadcrumb pop. And it'd be a disaster. So we don't want that. This is why we double bread it. Okay. Now, same thing. I'm shaking those little croquettes here into the egg mixture. And again, I grab them, remove the excess, and place that into my breadcrumb. Now, as you see, I put it in. I put a little breadcrumb on it. Oops. So when I press to release it, I'm actually not touching the egg yolk. I'm actually not touching the egg. Like that, a breadcrumb, and it releases very easy. Those are little tricks, that help to get a beautiful product at the end. Then you take them and you roll them in your hand like that. You're pressing the breadcrumb in and you shape it the end and you get nice little logs this way. Then I'm going to fry those. I'm going to fry them in a 350 degree Fahrenheit. And to ensure that they are nice and warm inside, I will put them in the oven at 300 degree for 3 to 4 minutes. This is to make sure they hot inside, because if you take them out of the fridge and they've been in the freezer like me, I'm sorry, if you take them out of the freezer and they were a little frozen, you want to make sure that they'll be hot inside, because they could get color on the outside in your fryer but not be hot inside. So it's very important to flash them just 5 minutes into a 300-degree Fahrenheit oven. So the oil is hot. I'm putting those into my basket delicately, very little fragile, you know. Make sure your oil is at 350. If it's not hot enough, they're going to have to spend too much time in the oil and they're going to absorb that oil, which you don't want. They need to get a nice sear very, very quick. Now you don't want the oil too hot, because then they will brown too fast and they might burn. Now we wait patiently. I want to develop a nice golden color on those. Okay, beautiful, nice and golden brown. I remove them. Then the oil into the fryer. No need to bring too much oil onto your plate here. And you remove them this way. And here we have beautiful little croquettes. I'm going to let them drain a little bit. Rearrange them. And then in my oven again, 5 minutes to make sure they're nice. My croquette, my little Thanksgiving in a bite, spent 5 minutes, 3 minutes actually. I checked one, it was ready, so 3 minutes was enough. I'm going to season them with a little bit of salt. I'm going to try one and see how they are. They might be hot inside, so be careful. And it's nice to let them rest a minute or two before you serve them to your guests so they don't burn themselves. They come out very good. A lot of flavor inside. This is great. Thank you for watching. Happy Thanksgiving to you. It's coming. It's next week. Enjoy your holidays. And let me know if you like the video. Thank you. Bye-bye.